Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex ideas, looking for those simple, powerful insights.
That's right.
And today, we're diving into something incredibly profound: loss.
Hmm.
And, the questions it raises about what might come after.
Yeah, it's a journey that really challenges some basic assumptions, doesn't it? About consciousness, the mind,
Yeah,
our own potential, really.
exactly. We're exploring these extraordinary claims, things most people might just dismiss outright.
Things like, well, communicating with those who've passed on.
Right. And the idea that our minds can do much more than we think, and maybe even how we could, cultivate that.
And our guide for this material is Dr. Tara Swart. She's fascinating medical doctor, psychiatrist, neuroscientist.
So she comes at this with real scientific rigor, but also, well, from deep personal experience.
Which is key here.
Yeah. So our mission today isn't about endorsing one view. It's about unpacking her journey, the science she found, what it all means for grief, consciousness, potential.
Without judgment, just exploring the ideas she presents.
Get ready, because
Yeah.
some of this might really shift your perspective.
Okay, so her journey, it really started from this place of intense personal pain.
Right.
Dr. Swart, she shared that she lost her husband, Robin, to leukemia. This was almost 4 years ago now, back in 2021.
Just days before their anniversary, I read.
Yeah, 2 days before their 4th anniversary. And despite her background, neuroscience, psychiatry, she said she felt totally lost and broken.
Wow. I mean, imagine that. Someone who studies the brain feeling completely adrift.
Exactly. And her first instinct out of desperation was to see mediums.
But that didn't really resonate with her.
No, she said she was unimpressed, which led her to this really interesting thought.
Okay.
As someone focused on optimizing the brain, she thought, well, if communication is possible, shouldn't she be able to figure out how to do it herself?
That makes sense, given her background. But then why keep these experiences secret for 4 whole years? That seems like a long time.
Well, that's the thing. She talks about how extraordinary her experiences were and the genuine fear. The fear of being called insane.
Especially as a psychiatrist.
Exactly. She mentioned being part of teams that had, sectioned people, locked people up, and had them injected with stuff against their will for making claims that sounded, on the surface at least, kind of similar.
So, a huge professional risk. The taboo is massive.
Immense, especially in science.
And yet, she still came forward.
Yes. And she asserts now, with 100% certainty, she says, that communication is possible.
Wow.
Her whole point is that the human mind is capable of so much more than what we think.
Okay, so how does she start to unpack that more? Where does that begin?
Well, maybe let's start with a basic question. How many senses do you think we have?
5. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell. That's what we learn in school.
Right, that's the standard answer. But Dr. Swart's research, it completely challenges that.
Okay, how so?
Her research suggests humans actually have, get this, 34 senses.
34.
34, not 5.
Whoa. Okay, that's a huge leap. So it's not just a number, it's like our conscious perception is just scratching the surface.
Pretty much like the tip of an enormous iceberg, mostly unconscious.
Okay.
She gives examples like your body unconsciously tracking your blood pH.
Right, you don't feel that happen.
Or the oxygen and carbon dioxide balance in your blood. You're not consciously aware, but your body knows.
Okay.
So while some are non-conscious, this whole expanded suite of senses hints at capabilities way beyond what you might even imagine.
It's just a much richer interaction with everything around us and inside us than we realize.
Exactly.
So 34 senses.
That's mind-boggling. How did Dr. Swart start connecting this idea of expanded awareness to her own grief? How did she begin feeling Robin's presence?
Well, early on, she noticed robins appearing frequently in her garden, both in Hampshire and London.
Okay, but that could just be...
Right, she rationalized it at first,
Yeah.
coincidence. But it was just the start.
About 6 weeks after he passed, she had this really vivid experience. Woken up by a massive thump on her shoulder.
A physical sensation.
Yeah, and then she saw this, well, she described it as a vague, then clearer, hazy version of Robin right next to her bed
Wow.
before he just dissolved from the top down.
That sounds incredibly intense and unsettling. But it wasn't only these, external signs, was it? Her body reacted to it.
Oh, absolutely. She talked about these physical aches and pains all over for about 6 or 7 weeks around his 1st anniversary, which is October 26th.
Okay.
But then she realized the pains actually started exactly on October 4th.
And that date was significant.
That was the day she'd brought him home from the hospital. To die.
So the body remembered the trauma, even if her conscious mind hadn't clocked the date initially.
Precisely. It's striking. And another example, the 2 weeks before his cremation, she felt freezing cold, constantly shivering.
And a connection.
Robin apparently hated being cold, and his body was, in a refrigerated morgue drawer at the time.
It's like the body has its own language for grief, totally separate from conscious thought.
That's a good way to put it. And over time, she actually started to develop this. She calls it her sign muscle.
Okay, like training it?
Exactly. She said it took years, like learning a language or going to the gym. It wasn't instant.
Right.
But she learned to ask for specific signs, and then eventually she'd receive them, sometimes even the same day. It became a kind of cultivated ability.
Can you give an example? How specific did these signs get?
Okay, the Phoenix story is a really powerful one. Before Robin's second anniversary, she was in America feeling totally burnt out.
Right.
So she asked Robin for a sign, specifically a phoenix. She chose it because it's unusual and it symbolizes rebirth.
Okay, a phoenix, not something you see every day.
Exactly. Soon after, she's in Oklahoma City and sees a restaurant named Phoenix Garden.
Ah, interesting.
But then, get this, her flight back to LA, which she was promised would be direct,
Yeah.
it got unexpectedly rerouted through Phoenix, Arizona, on the day of the anniversary.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty specific.
Right.
Now, the skeptical part of me, the scientific training, immediately jumps to confirmation bias. You look for a phoenix, you see phoenixes everywhere. How does Dr. Swart, the scientist, deal with that?
She absolutely acknowledges it. Confirmation bias, the reticular activating system, basically, your brain's filter letting in what it expects or wants to see.
Right.
So to counter that, she started setting really narrow criteria, like needing to see a specific symbol 3 times by a specific time.
Raising the bar for coincidence?
Exactly. Or demanding a sign appear when she went out of her way for it, making it less likely she just stumbled upon it in her normal routine.
Okay, that makes sense, like actively testing it. Do you have an example of that out of her way type of sign?
Yeah, she tells the story about walking past University College Hospital.
Where Robin had treatment.
Yes, exactly. So it was a huge emotional trigger for her, really distressing. And internally, she asked for a sign right then. Shortly after, near Houston Station, she looks down and finds an elastic band on the pavement, shaped perfectly like an H or an infinity symbol.
And that symbol meant something specific to them.
Profound personal significance, yes. The context, her emotional state, actively asking, and then that specific symbol appearing. She found it compelling.
It's hard to dismiss that kind of personal synchronicity.
Yeah.
So how does she, as a neuroscientist and psychiatrist, start to frame these experiences scientifically, especially given the overlap with things like psychosis symptoms?
Well, this is fascinating. She suggests that grief itself can in some ways mimic psychosis.
Mimic? How so?
It changes your brain chemistry, neurotransmitter levels, electrical signaling. That's all disrupted. This can lead to experiences like thought insertion, that feeling like thoughts are being put into your mind.
Which is a documented symptom in schizophrenia, right?
Exactly. And she expresses huge empathy for people who experience this without the framework or resources to understand what's happening physiologically.
That distinction is crucial. Grief mimicking psychosis, not being psychosis. It avoids pathologizing the grief experience. So if the brain is in this altered, maybe vulnerable state, does creativity play a role? How might we navigate that?
Yes, absolutely. She brings in this model of shared trait vulnerability. It links creativity with a predisposition to mental illness.
Okay, tell me more about that.
There are 3 neurological things she points to. First, hyperconnection. More parts of the brain firing and linking up simultaneously lets you connect disparate ideas, see patterns others miss.
Okay, joining the dots differently.
Second, novelty salience. That's like having a radar for noticing new important things that other people might just filter out.
Right.
And third, attenuated latent inhibition, basically a looser filter. More raw information gets into your conscious awareness, less is automatically screened out.
Okay, so hyperconnection, novelty salience, looser filter. And how does that relate to creativity versus crisis?
Well, if you have these traits, plus a high IQ and cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift your thinking, it often leads to high creativity.
Makes sense.
But if you have maybe a lower IQ, or you get stuck in rigid, repetitive thought patterns, perseveration, these same traits can push you towards a psychological crisis.
So the same underlying neurology can manifest very differently. And Dr. Swart saw her own creativity during grief as a positive expression of this.
Yes, as a kind of conduit, a way to navigate that altered state, that vulnerability, and access a kind of expanded awareness productively.
Interesting. So creativity as a potential pathway. This also connects to her point about trauma being stored not just in the mind, but physically in the body. That idea is gaining traction.
Definitely. She talks about the neurology, how severe trauma can literally shut down the part of your brain used for articulating speech.
Which is why people say, I'm speechless when they're overwhelmed.
Exactly. It suggests that deep trauma gets locked in physically in ways that just talking about it might not fully reach.
So how does that physical storage work? Is there a mechanism she points to?
She mentions the serotonin hypothesis as one possibility. It involves tiny blood vessels, capillaries constricting, and nutrient release within the fascia.
Fascia, that's the connective tissue, right? The web throughout the body.
Yes, exactly. It wraps around everything, muscles, organs. It's now increasingly seen as an organ itself, playing a huge role in pain, movement, and even holding emotional memory.
Okay, so if trauma is held physically like that, in the fascia, perhaps, what's the solution? If talking isn't always enough.
This is where somatic work comes in, physical approaches.
Like what?
Things like therapeutic massage, dance, art therapy, craniosacral therapy, tai chi, even drumming, humming, chanting, singing.
It sounds almost primal.
It is. She connects it back to ancient wisdom, like ancient Greek burial rituals, the wailing, the beating of the chest. They instinctively knew how to release grief physically.
It's fascinating how modern science is catching up with these ancient practices. Okay, let's push further now into things that really challenge a purely material view of the mind. Terminal lucidity, for instance.
Right. This is truly baffling from a standard neurological perspective.
Explain it again.
Okay, imagine someone, say an 82-year-old with severe Alzheimer's, nonverbal, unresponsive for years, clear, irreversible brain damage.
Yeah.
Then, maybe in the last day or even just the last hour before they die, they suddenly become completely lucid.
Completely.
Recognizing family, calling them by name, having coherent conversations, reminiscing clearly, like the illness vanished, and then they pass away.
And science has no explanation for how a severely damaged brain could suddenly function perfectly.
Currently, no. It strongly suggests the mind, or consciousness, isn't solely dependent on the physical brain structure, at least not in the way we typically assume, that it might operate independently, even briefly.
That alone is staggering. And then you have near-death experiences, NDEs. Dr. Swart mentioned some compelling cases.
Yes, she does. Like Dr. Mary Neal, an orthopedic surgeon. She was underwater, drowned for 15-20 minutes. Clinically dead.
And she reported.
Seeing another realm, a being of light telling her she had to go back to her body. Or Dr. Eben Alexander. He was an atheist neurosurgeon. Severe bacterial meningitis, deep coma, brain essentially shut down. Clinically dead.
His experience.
He reported visiting what he described as heaven, experienced overwhelming love, and now is deeply spiritual, believes in a benevolent God. His whole worldview shifted.
That's a profound change for a neurosurgeon. And what about that incredible story from Dr. Bruce Grayson's research? He studied thousands of NDEs, right?
Yeah, Dr. Grayson at the University of Virginia, over 50 years, 5,000 plus cases. He shared this one story. An ICU patient, cardiac arrest, having an NDE.
Okay.
During the NDE, the patient sees his primary nurse, and he's told in this state to tell her parents, sorry about the red MG.
A red MG card.
Yeah. So the patient recovers, tells the staff this message, and it turns out the nurse he saw, she had tragically died in a car crash involving a red MG just that weekend.
And the patient couldn't have known that.
Absolutely no way. He was unconscious in cardiac arrest.
Wow. Those kinds of verifiable details are incredibly hard to explain away.
You really are.
So pulling all this together, terminal lucidity, NDEs with verifiable elements, what's the big conclusion Dr. Swart draws about the mind?
Her conclusion is that the mind, consciousness, isn't just a product of the physical brain, that there's something else, call it soul, energy, consciousness, that exists separately, maybe part of a larger universe consciousness or collective consciousness.
And she feels this isn't purely speculative.
She points out that even mainstream scientists like Dr. David Eagleman or Professor Donald Hoffman are exploring ideas that challenge materialism. Concepts like the brain being a receiver for consciousness, not the generator, or consciousness being fundamental to reality.
Things that can't currently be disproven by science.
Exactly. So it pushes us to consider that our essence might not be entirely confined to our physical selves. It reframes life and death.
It certainly opens up the possibilities. She also mentioned other ways people explore altered states, like dark retreats. I've heard of them, But they sound intense.
They are. It's an ancient practice, found in Tibetan traditions, also ancient Greeks, Romans, spending days, sometimes weeks, in complete pitch-black darkness.
Days or weeks? What happens?
Well, apparently first you sleep a lot. Your body adjusts. Then people report seeing pulsations of light, then visions animals, sometimes real, sometimes fantastical,
Okay.
and eventually sometimes encounters with deities or beings, descriptions often sounding very similar to NDEs.
And the effects afterwards.
People report feeling more joy in life, less fear of death, of failure, and increased compassion.
Interesting. And she links this to other methods, too.
Yeah, like conscious connected breathing or holotropic breathwork. She says that can produce effects similar to psilocybin. And of course, psychedelic plants themselves are another route.
What about animals? Do they fit into this picture of expanded senses?
Definitely. Animals clearly have senses we don't. Dogs smelling cancer, cats sensing imminent death.
Right.
She mentions Joy Milner, the nurse who actually smelled her husband's Parkinson's disease years before he was diagnosed. Her ability eventually led to new diagnostic approaches.
Amazing.
And think about blind people using echolocation. They rewire their visual cortex to process sound as spatial information. The brain is incredibly adaptable.
So perception is far more flexible and vast than we usually assume, and science is still figuring it out.
Right. Which leads to a key point. Just because science hasn't proven something yet doesn't mean it's not real or worth exploring.
Like the example she gave about the eye.
Exactly. Russell Foster discovering those melanopsin cells in the retina, the ones that sense light-dark cycles for our body clock. Established scientists initially scoffed, like, we've studied the eye for 150 years, you think we missed a whole cell type.
But he was right.
He was right. It's a great reminder to stay open to what we don't know yet. Science is always evolving.
That's a really important perspective. So, okay, if we're willing to be open, if we want to potentially cultivate this connection or awareness in our own lives, what practical steps does Dr. Swart suggest?
Well, the first thing, she says, is belief. Even if you have to keep it quiet because, societal judgment, you have to start with the possibility.
Okay, belief as a starting point. What else?
Second, she talks about neuroaesthetics. This is actively practicing noticing beauty.
Actively.
Yeah, not just passively seeing a flower, but really noticing it. Or a beautiful building, or the way light falls. It's a mental exercise.
And that does something in the brain.
It produces oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It becomes self-rewarding. And crucially, it increases that novelty salience we talked about earlier. It helps open the brain's filter.
So training your brain to see more wonder, essentially. I like that. What's next?
Third, nature. Spending time in nature. She finds it incredibly healing and notes how many signs people report come from nature. Butterflies, robins, cloud shapes.
Makes sense. Connects us to something bigger.
And it links back to how our ancestors lived, more in tune with natural cycles, understanding renewal. Fourth is community.
Why community?
Having people you can share these subtle, maybe weird-seeming experiences with without being judged. A safe space is vital for this kind of exploration.
That seems really important. And what about gut health? That seemed like an unexpected connection.
Yeah, but it's critical. She calls the gut-brain axis a three-way system.
Yeah.
Brain, gut neurons, and the gut microbiome all talking to each other.
Okay.
So taking care of your gut reduces inflammation systemically. That protects the brain, especially the hippocampus, key for memory, learning.
Right.
It creates balance, homeostasis. And that frees up extra resources, she says, for higher mental functions, including potentially accessing that hidden wisdom stored in the body.
So optimizing the physical foundation helps unlock mental and maybe even intuitive capacities. Beyond these personal practices, what about the broader benefits of just being open to these ideas, this transcendent perspective?
Well, there's research showing that even just learning about NDEs can have positive effects for over a year.
Really? Like what?
Increased compassion, more gratitude, kindness, being less materialistic. Dr. Swart argues that believing in something bigger than yourself, whether it's spiritual, religious, or just a sense of interconnectedness, gives life purpose.
Yeah, purpose is healthy.
Physically, mentally, emotionally healthy. Now, she does acknowledge the downsides of rigid dogma, but the core belief in something more seems beneficial.
And she also talked about this crisis of meaning in modern life.
Yeah, that in our very individualistic world with so many choices, people can feel kind of unanchored, lost.
Right.
And she suggests that rediscovering some of this ancient wisdom, focusing on true connection, deep, meaningful, altruistic relationships, not just transactional ones, can coexist with technology. It can help combat that feeling of meaninglessness.
So it's about integrating ancient understanding with modern life, not rejecting progress.
Exactly, finding that balance.
And how is Dr. Swart herself doing now, with her own grief journey, after these intense experiences?
She says she's much better, but she also shared something quite vulnerable. A lingering fear, almost a guilt, about letting my light really shine, about achieving success after Robin's death.
That's understandable. Complex grief.
Very. She also mentioned how Robin showed her unconditional love, something she hadn't really believed in before him. And while she's open to love again, she's not actively looking. She feels vulnerable, but calm. It's clearly an ongoing, deeply personal process.
It sounds like the whole experience, the loss, the exploration, the discoveries, has fundamentally changed her.
Absolutely. She reflects on being different now. More fragile, yes, more vulnerable, but also feeling empowered.
Empowered how?
Empowered to help others who are struggling and suffering, to help them feel seen and heard. She feels her journey gave her a unique ability to connect with people on that deeper level, a new kind of purpose.
What an incredible, challenging journey she's documented.
Mm-hmm.
Exploring this deep dive, hearing these stories and ideas, it really does shift something. For me, it moves the needle from outright skepticism towards a more, well, agnostic stance.
Yeah, that feeling of there's just so much I don't know.
Exactly. It fosters a real willingness to reconsider, to maybe change your mind as new information or even new experiences come along.
And it's not necessarily about finding definitive proof for everything right now. It's more about opening up to possibility. Like Dr. Swart said about science, what seems impossible today might just be tomorrow's discovery. It's really an invitation to stay curious.
It really is. And the potential implications for you listening right now are pretty profound. What if our senses are broader? What if connection runs deeper than we think, maybe even beyond physical presence? So as you think about this conversation, maybe consider, what little experiments could you try in your own life, just to gently test the edges of your own perception, your own connection?
Like what kind of things?
Maybe it's that neuroaesthetics idea, actively looking for moments of beauty today,
Mm-hmm.
or intentionally spending some quiet time in nature this week, or perhaps just holding a little space open, being willing to notice if unexpected signs or synchronicities appear in your everyday life, just seeing what happens.